Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritam Naram Chaiva Naturdama Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Ujirayet Nastaprayasu Abhadresu Nityam Bhagavate Sevaya Bhagavate Uttamasloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. Hare Krishna. So today we have a lot of information to cover. Today is also the appearance day of Vrindavan Das Thakur. So we'll speak something on him and also from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So in order to circumvent time, I will first read the last 3 verses and the only purport in the Srimad Bhagavatam for the 10th chapter, and then I will speak on Sri Vrindavan Das Thakur and then give some information on the verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So normally we recite the verse, but I'm just going to read the translation, and there's only one small purport, so please listen carefully. Text number 30, the battle between the demigods and Vritasura. Seeing his army broken and all the Asuras, even those known as great heroes, fleeing the battlefield out of intense fear, Vritasura, who was truly a great-minded hero, smiled and spoke the following words. Text number 31. According to his position and the time and circumstances, Vritasura, a hero among heroes, spoke words that were much to be appreciated by thoughtful men. He called to those heroes of the demons, Viprachita, O Namuchi, O Puloma, O Maya, Anvara, and Sambhara, please hear me and do not flee. Vritasura said, all living entities who have taken birth in this material world must die. Surely no one in this world has found any means to be saved from death. Even Providence has not provided a means to escape it. Under the circumstances, death being inevitable, if one can gain promotion to the higher planetary systems and be always celebrated here by dying a suitable death, what man will not accept such a glorious death? Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. If by dying one can be elevated to the higher planetary systems and be ever famous after his death, who is so foolish that he will refuse such a glorious death? Similar advice was given by Krishna to Arjuna. My dear Arjuna, the Lord said, do not desist from fighting. If you gain victory in the fighting, you will enjoy a kingdom. And even if you die, you will be elevated to heavenly planets. Everyone should be ready to die while performing glorious deeds. A glorious person is not meant to death like a cat or a dog. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvasesha Sunyavari Skati Desatarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhakta-Vrindam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, on many occasions, Srila Prabhupada had mentioned that in our society, there is almost a festival that could be held every day of the year in glorification of our lineage of such great Vaishnavas. And today is no exception. This is the appearance day of Vrindavan Dasa Thakur. Srimad Vrindavan Das Thakur's mother's name was Narayani. And Narayani was the daughter of Srivas Thakur's brother. And after the disappearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Srivas Thakur went to Kumarahata to reside. Srivas Thakur had three brothers, Sprita, Sri Rama, and Sri Nidha. And he also had one son, but his son passed away at a very young age, so there's not any information about him. Srivas Thakur's previously lived in Srihata, but because he wanted to have the association of other Vaishnavas, he moved to the bank of the Ganges in Navadvip. So we all know that in this place, Srivas Thakur carried out many intimate pastimes in Srivas Angam with his Lordship, Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Nityananda. And when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu revealed his divine holy image to those present in Srivas Angam, Narayani at that time was just a very young 4-year-old girl. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very merciful. He revealed himself as the soul of all souls, and at that time he ordered Narayani to begin her chanting of the holy names of the Lord. Although she was such a young girl, and because the Lord had instructed her, at that time she became mad with love by chanting the holy names of the Lord. "O Krishna!" All day long she would chant, and she would swoon in ecstasy. As she laid on the ground in trance, her eyes would overwhelm with tears, and she would be full of divine love for the Lord, simply by chanting his holy name. So Narayani's son was named Vrindavan Das Thakur. It was written in the Chaitanya Bhagavat of how Narayani was the object of Lord Chaitanya's special affection. As a result of her great piety, Narayani would always receive the remnants of food that were taken by the Lord. And even though she was an unschooled schoolgirl, the Lord would always show a special favor to Srivas Thakur's niece by giving her his leftovers. So this shows us that it doesn't require that we have any previous qualifications in order to receive the mercy of the Lord. Not that we be elevated and learned Pandit or Brahmin, or be born in a noble and wealthy family. We simply must have that affection for the Lord within our heart. In his commentary on the Sri Chaitanya Bhagavata, Bhaktivinoda Thakur Saraswati said, at the ancestral home of Malini Devi, the wife of Srivas Thakur, Vrindavan Das played as a small child as he was growing up, and there he was nourished and cared for just like a valuable gem. One may find facts regarding the life of Vrindavan Das by going to Mamangashi, the village where Narayani's wedding took place. While Vrindavan Das was still within the womb of Narayani, she became a widow. So there's not much information about Vrindavan Das Thakur's father. Vrindavan Das Thakur took birth 4 years after Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted sannyas. When Mahaprabhu had disappeared from this world and entered into his spiritual abode, Vrindavan Das was barely 12 years old. Thereafter, Vrindavan Das Thakur accepted initiation from Lord Nityananda Prabhu. He is also Nityananda's eternal servant. In the Bhagavatam, we know that everything was compiled, the Vedas, by Vyasadeva, and it is also stated that Vrindavan Das Thakur is the Vyasadeva of Lord Chaitanya's Leela. Vrindavan Das Thakur had written about Lord Chaitanya and called his book the Chaitanya Mangala. And whoever hears from this book, it is guaranteed that no misfortune will ever bestow them. His book also contains the essence of the Holy Bhagavat and shows what Krishna Bhakti is and what Krishna Bhakti is not. Even if an atheist person is fortunate enough to hear the glories written in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, he will join the ranks of all those saintly men whose souls are heaven sent. No ordinary man can sing of God as Vrindavan Das Thakur had. The Lord himself has spoken through the Thakur's holy tongue. We should bow 1,000,000 times before his lotus feet, whose verses are so sweet that one who reads them shall be freed from the dark mortal earth, and also bow 1,000,000 times a day before the place where he took his birth. So in his childhood, Narayani Devi's niece of the Srivas Pandit became a maidservant, and she lived in extreme poverty in the house of, who was that? Vasudev Datta. And it's noted here that all great Vaishnavas in the past never focused attention upon themselves. Their concern was to glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and also to glorify their predecessors, those other great Vaishnavas who appeared before them. So Krishnadas Kaviraj, Vrindavan Das Thakur, Rupa Goswami, and Srila Prabhupada. You will never read in any of their literatures how they actually took credit and glorified themselves. So during the 16th century, entire books of exceptional transcendental prose and poetry were penned by so many great Vaishnavas, but all of them preferred to remain anonymous, fueling almost relations to their preceptors. So again, Krishnadas Kaviraj glorifies his gurus, and at the end of each chapter of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, he glorifies Rupa Goswami. So praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa Goswami and Sri Raghunath Das, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishnadas, narrate Chaitanya Charitamrita, following in their footsteps. So this is our process, is that we must follow in the footsteps of our previous acharyas and exclude the phrases of I in our commentaries or our discussions on the Vedic literatures. It's better to use they or them in our descriptions of the activities and the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Sri Vrindavan Das Thakur is Lord Nityananda's favorite devotee, and therefore he is original Vrindavan Das in describing, or original Veda Vyas in describing the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in this way, we can follow the footsteps of Vrindavan Das Thakur. We can read his books and the poems and songs that he wrote, and how he described the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we know that previous great acharyas, they gave us the means and by which, if we wish to cultivate love of God in our hearts, there is a method that we must follow, and that was given to us by Bhakti-Vinod Thakur. And what did he say in one of his songs? Jeev Jago. So what is that song? You know? Jeev Jago, Jeev Jago. So what does this mean? Wake up. So what does this mean, wake up? So we know that there are two varieties of human beings. Udita Viveka, those with spiritual awakened consciousness, and Anudita Viveka, those with slumbering consciousness. So in the age of Kali Yuga, everyone is sleeping, and we are in ignorance of our true identity. And according to the instructions of Bhakti-Vinod Thakur, we must wake up from this slumbering state and establish ourselves firmly and convict ourselves to the path that those with awakened consciousness follow. And that comes through instructions given by Lord Chaitanya as Harinama, 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 Eva Kevalam, Kalo Nasteva, Nasteva, Gatriyanyata. So there is no other way in this age of quarrel to reestablish our awakened consciousness than by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So we have examples of all of these great previous acharyas, and especially on this day, including Vrindavan Das Thakur, that and as Narayani had received the mercy of the Lord, even though she was a uneducated, fallen young female, the mercy of the Lord is open to anyone who is receptive. So accept the Lord into your heart receptively and chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra without committing any of the 10 offenses, and your perfection of life will be guaranteed. So on this day, we can remember Vrindavan Das Thakur and all of the previous great acharyas who left their legacy in the literature that they have given us, and the instructions by which, if we follow, we will attain perfection of life. So, Vrindavan Das Thakur ki jai. So, I spoke a little about Vrindavan Das Thakur. Now I'd like to go to today's text from Srimad Bhagavatam. Once again, I will read the last verse, text 33. There are two ways to meet a glorious death, and both are very rare. One is to die after performing mystic yoga, especially bhakti-yoga, by which one can control the mind and living force and die accordingly in thoughts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The second is to die on a battlefield, leading the army and never showing one's back. These two kinds of death are recommended in the Shastras as glorious. So we know that in this material world, from the highest planet to the lowest planet, they are all places of misery where there is always going to be strife and conflict between good and evil. And this is no exception in the heavenly planets. So, we know that from reading this chapter that Vritasura had been harassing the demigods, and he exhibited great strength and force and was able to conquer in so many ways the advances of the demigods. And so they had to come up with some solution. And what did they do? They went to the great sage Daduchi, and they requested that Daduchi give up his body, the 5 elements of his material body, so that they could make a weapon that would be suitable to counteract the advances of Vritasura. Now, Daduchi, he was an elevated soul, and he was not attached in the slightest bit to the gross material elements, earth, water, fire, air, in this way. And so he agreed to the demigod's proposal, and he concentrated himself on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he left this abode, leaving behind his gross physical body. So in order to make a suitable weapon, now that the bones of Diduchi, who had been infused with the potency of the Supreme Lord, Vishwakarma came and took those bones, and he made a magnificent weapon, a thunderbolt, which we all know is thrown and carried by Indra. So after Vishwakarma had made this weapon, and Diduchi had left this material realm and gone back to the kingdom of God, Indra got on his elephant carrier and followed along by all of the other demigods. He began proceeding towards the location where Vritrasura and his army of Rakshasas and demons were there waiting to do battle. So as Indra was riding on his elephants carrying this magnificent weapon, he shone magnificently as he rode. And he was praised and glorified by all the denizens of the heavenly planets. And this all took place at the end of Sattva Yuga and the beginning of the Treta Yuga. So at this time, a fierce battle between the demigods and the demons on the bank of the Narmada River, it ensued. So Indra was surrounded by all of his compatriots, such as the Rudras and the Siddhyas and the Vishvadayas, and on the other side was Vritrasura, he was surrounded by demons and demi-demons and Rakshasas. Yes, demi-demons. So almost a demon, but not a demon. So there are all these different categories. And at this time, Vritrasura, he began roaring very tumultuously like a lion. And they began attacking all of the demigods, headed by Vritrasura. And they began beating down the demigods with their clubs and their bludgeons and arrows and barbed darts and lances and tridents and axes. And then when they ran out of all of these weapons, they began uprooting trees and throwing mountain peaks at the demigods. And in this way, they caused great fear to manifest within the hearts of all the demigods. But by acting very quickly, the demigods were able to cut down all the weapons and that were being thrown at them by the demons, even before they could reach them and cause harm. So when the demons ran out of all of these weapons, they began to become very fearful and started to flee for their lives. And then when Vritrasura saw this behavior of his soldiers, seeing them scatter out of fear, Vritrasura, he smiled very deeply, and he began to chastise them, calling all of his generals by name, and telling them that whoever has been born in this material world must die because death is inevitable for everybody. Therefore, if one can gain promotion, just as it says in the purport, to the higher planetary systems and achieve eternal fame on earth by dying a suitable death, what sane man would refuse such an opportunity? So this was also Krishna's instructions to Arjuna. So there are two kinds of glorious deaths, by performance of mystic yoga, and we know especially bhakti-yoga, or by being killed on the battlefield with having turned one's back. So what happened to all of those who died on the battlefield of Kurukshetra? Because they died glorious deaths, even though they were the enemy, everyone was promoted to the spiritual kingdom. So in spite of this, after hearing Vritrasura's advice, was according to the religious principles, the demons were overwhelmed by fear and would not accept the instructions of Vritrasura. So we can see here that at this time, even the demons, they knew what were the principles of Dharma. And they had the opportunity and they had the choice to choose which they wished to follow, adharma or dharma. And we know by other examples of other demons who were very knowledgeable in the procedures of dharma, but they choose to follow adharma. Who is an example of one? He had a small boy. Yes, Hiranyakashipu and Prahlad Maharaj. Hiranyakashipu, he knew all of the dharmic principles, but because he was puffed up and proud of his prowess, he rejected the proper principles and he chose to choose adharma. So in this way also, Vritrasura, he knows his destiny. He knows that Indra has this thunderbolt which is infused by the power of Vishnu, and so he knows that death is imminent for him. But he continued to fight, and Indra, he took his club and he hurled it towards Vritrasura. But just as an elephant plucks a lotus flower from the lake, Vritrasura caught the club in his left hand and began to laugh at Indra. And what did he do with that club? He smashed Indra's elephant carrier. And to this point, that elephant had never endured such punishment and fell to the ground bleeding with Indra still on his back. But Vritrasura was a man of principle. Unlike today, if your back is turned, I will attack you from the rear. A true Kshatriya will never attack an unarmed Kshatriya combatant or someone who is been thrown from their chariot, except one person. Who is that person? Who is not obliged to these rules? Who's on the altar here? Krishna. Yes. And what did Krishna do? Who did he attack? He attacked Bhishma. Yes. So he broke all the rules, but he is not obliged to follow rules and regulations as we are. But Vritrasura, being an honorable, although demoniac individual, as Indra was lying on the ground, unarmed and unable to fight, did not provocate his aggression further towards Indra. So this gave Indra the opportunity to, with his nectarian hands, touch his elephant carrier and rejuvenate the life back into his elephant. And then this elephant rose, and the battle between Vritrasura and the demigods ensued. So we know that Vritrasura was well aware that now Indra had the trident, or the thunderbolt, that had been given to him and empowered by Lord Vishnu himself. So he knew his destiny, and he knew that his destiny was to die. But he was not afraid, because he said, "You take this life, and then I will give up this material body, and it will be consumed back into the elements of this material nature. And then my soul will be free to take birth again and to associate with saintly persons." So Vritrasura, in this way, he said, "I am willing to die in order to live again as a great devotee." So we are going to read more later about the auspicious characteristics of Vritrasura. And we know that all of these stories in Srimad Bhagavatam, they are given to us just as we have here in story-like form. So why are they given to us in stories like this? Why is this philosophy written out as like fables or children's stories? Who knows? Now, everyone should know. Why? Huh? Yes. Because in Kali Yuga now, what perplexity did Vyasadeva have? Yes, Vyasadeva was perplexed because he had compiled all of the Vedas. But what was his contemplation? His contemplations were that in this age of Kali, where man is born less intelligent, how will it be possible for him to understand the depth and the severity and the knowledge that I have given in these 4 Vedas? So I have to simplify this in such a way that even, what did he say? Sudras, Vaishyas, women, all of these less intelligent entities would be able to understand, and not only understand, but have the opportunity to follow them and make progress on this spiritual life. So these stories, they are meant for us, and they're giving it to us in such a way that even though we are less intelligent, we can see, oh yes, okay, that sounds logical, okay, I accept, yes, yes, Vritrasura, he was a demon, but he understood this, he did that, and this and that, and ultimately he gave up his life, and his thoughts and his concentration were on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So however we are living our lives in this material body, the culmination of our life, it may come at any moment. I know recently I've been having a lot of physical disabilities. I fell down a flight of stairs the other day. I thought I was going to die. I'm becoming crippled, and I know that death is imminent. I could die today or tomorrow, and all of us here, the same eventual destination is destined. We are going to die today or tomorrow. So it behooves us to concentrate ourselves and prepare ourselves for that final steps by keeping in mind all of these stories, all of these pastimes that we hear and we read. They are not simply there for entertainment. They are there for instructing us on how to prepare to die. Because whoever is born in this material world, what is certain? Death. Death is certain, either today or tomorrow. How many breaths we have remaining is not known by us, but certainly we will eventually take our last breath. And so prepare yourself for this moment. And again, the way you prepare yourselves is, Krishna says in Bhagavad-Gita, always think of me, become my devotee. And what does Krishna guarantee? I will protect you. So always think of Krishna. And the best way again to always think of Krishna is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So by chanting Krishna's glories, remembering Krishna's transcendental pastimes, remembering those devotees who have left literatures about Lord Chaitanya and Lord Krishna for us, and other devotees, whether they be from the demoniac side or from the divine side. We can, at the moment of death, remember Krishna and go back home, back to Godhead. So today a little bit less time, so I'll stop. Any questions? Yes, you have the microphone. Yes. Okay. To my best of my knowledge, yes, he was. Yes. I'm sorry? Yes.
And then what makes him to get individual towards Indra, who is a thinking of Lord Krishna himself? Is it the first was pure consciousness, but he had bad habits or something like that?
We know that the greatest of all of the demons that appeared, like Kamsa, Hiranyakashipu, they in their original forms were great devotees of the Lord. So in many times, in order to give opportunity for lessons to be instructed, the demons or such will manifest, themselves, or the devotees will manifest themselves in demoniac characters. But as we read from here, Vritasura, he was fully conscious, and so this shows that even at this time it was Treta Yuga. So Treta Yuga, what percentage of all of the inhabitants were God conscious? A majority. were all God conscious. And everyone understood the principles of Dharma, and they followed them. But today in Kali Yuga, we have digressed to the point where almost nobody knows what is Dharma and what is Adharma. And they are all following the path of Adharma. So the demons today, they don't know what is to be done and what is not to be done. Their motivation and their behavior is simply meant for gaining wealth, fame, power, at the cost of religion or the desecration of mankind itself, just as long as they can profit from this. So Vritrasura, he was different. He knew, even going into the battle, he knew that he was going to die, but because he was exuded with such valor, he was willing to die. It's described here as an honorable death. It's better to die an honorable death than to run in fear. So this is how his behavior was. Okay? Okay. Hare Krishna, thank you very much.